I told y'all, relax. I told you. Listen, I'm not going to ride this roller coaster of emotions when it comes to the 49ers. This is a playoff team, and I think they showed you what kind of ball they could play yesterday, but I think there's still a little bit more we can get out of this team. We're going to talk about all that and more pertaining to the 24-9 beatdown of the Los Angeles Rams. It's the San Francisco 49ers Morning Show. Get that focus in. Let's go!
It is picked off by Crocker over midfield. He'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Crock Talk TV podcast. Peace. Welcome to another episode of the San Francisco 49ers Morning Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back Eric Crocker. And of course, this morning, man, we're getting after it. We are going to go through everything pertaining to this win, the good, the great, the areas of where there could be some improvement and something I'm a little concerned about. But I ain't going to go too crazy. 49ers won, and that's exciting. All right, before we get started, man, I see everybody with the flames already going in. So if you're new to the show, when you see the flames, you see 5 flames, that means they're feeling good. All right, everybody's feeling good. A little mental wellness, health check, all that good stuff I talk about all the time, man. Like, I've never really dealt with it, but my wife has. So if you're feeling good and whatnot, you know what I'm saying, put those 5 flames in there. Anything less, man, we need to talk about it. But I think after that win last night, a lot of people are feeling pretty damn good. I don't know, 1 flame right here by XL. We need 5 of them things, man. We need 5 of them things. Hey, listen, if you're on Twitter, and you can follow me on Twitter at Eric_Crocker. You know, man, after each of the first few drives, I would start up a space, talk my trash real quick, and then get up out of there. All right. But I try to keep my, like, the fandom out of these conversations when we come on here. I try to be a little bit more, I don't want to say like professional, because I think this is a relaxed setting, but I try to be more, not a fan, and try to just bring a certain level of analysis to kind of, you know, like even everything out, not get too high, not get too low. But sometimes, you know what I'm saying, you can see me turn up a little bit. You know, I am from Stockton, you know what I'm saying, real 209, all that good stuff. I see my guy, Josue Torres, says, what's up with the Stockton serial killer? Listen, I've heard about it. You know, I talked about it with some of my buddies a little bit. You know, I don't know how much to, you know, I don't know what to think of it, you know. I don't know much about serial killers. Like, I didn't grow up around serial killers. Now, I did just watch a Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix, and I ain't know anything about Jeffrey Dahmer. My wife did, because she watches all those true crime. My wife goes, first of all, I think we, you know, the things you watch, the things you listen to, like, that's what we feed our brain all the time. So I listen to more, like, if it's not sports, it's really kind of something that's a little bit more educational as it pertains to, like, health and fitness and stuff like that. But I don't watch all those serial killer shows and stuff. My wife does. She goes to sleep to that stuff. All right. But she knew all about Jeffrey Dahmer. I didn't. I thought the series was crazy. But after watching the series, I went and watched, like, they had on the little ID channel my wife watches, they had the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary. And I'm not going to lie. They changed some things to make it a little bit more, like, entertaining, I guess you could say, on the series. But the events of it, like how this stuff happened, is true. Like, that stuff is true. And I think that's even more wild, right? That's even more wild. Like, there's a dude out there preying on gay people. It was really wild. But, and he was gay, so whatever. Anyways, Stockton serial killer, you know, all you can do is tell your people, man, be safe, stay strapped up. I live in Arkansas. So, you know, out here, you know, I got that thing on me. You feel me? So don't nobody come up to me doing no weird stuff. All right? Straight dead ass. Because Arkansas, you know what I'm saying, you could tote that thing. You feel me? Now, you kind of have to have it showing. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Anyways, but shout out to everybody in here. Shout out to my dog Abel in the chat right now. The serial killer going to mess with the wrong person, North Stockton. You know what I'm saying? Hey, me and Abel, we grew up together, so you already know. Abel will tell you. So at my daughter's, Abel, what was it? Was it my daughter's first birthday? Was it Shane's first birthday? Maybe second birthday? Abel will tell you there was a dude acting weird at the birthday party. And we had that, you know what I'm saying? Abel, my guys was ready to go. Just know that. All right. But shout out to all my Stockton folks. Shout out to my brother Abel. Shout out to all my good people. Anyways, we're about to get into talking about the 49ers. I got a bunch of notes here. Not a bunch of notes, but just different things I want to touch on. I got about 25 minutes with a special guest host. And that special guest host is my guy. Let me make sure I have the right. Yep, here we go. Jesse Naylor. Good morning, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Crock. Listen, it sounds like this is more of a husband's retreat who are scared of their wives that watch serial killer shows, because my wife does the same thing. So if I come up missing, Crock, you know what happened.
100%. I feel like my wife by now knows how to, like, what not to do, what to do. Things are a little different because she tells me, like, oh, you can never get away with this, like, in nowadays. And I'm like, man, how do you know this stuff? But she watches so much of this stuff. If my wife wanted to kill me and get away with it, she's seen how everybody gets caught. So hopefully she doesn't want to murder me anytime soon.
I feel it, man. I really do.
All right. But anyways, got my guy, Jesse Naylor. First of all, real quick, before we really get going, tell everybody where they can find. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. All right. Because more people are going to filter in. We'll talk about where they can find all your stuff. We got Jesse Naylor from Last Second Sports here. And shout out to your YouTube channel, man. It's growing. It's like it was growing, then you lost it. Then now it's growing again. People really show love, and for good reason, man. You have some good stuff. And, you know, you and I, we were on Twitter this morning. And you better stop using me. Don't use me as is scapegoat the right word? I don't think scapegoat's the right word, but you quote tweeted me and was like, keep that same energy with Crock as you got with me. You know what I'm saying? Essentially, that's what you said. And there's been a few people that do that, and I think it's funny. Obviously I'm joking, but if you notice how I worded it, I'm very careful because I know how people are gonna react, right? Like, I know this fan base can be very, is like, no, just enjoy it. And it's like, dude, I'm just, our job, the reason why we have almost 200 people in here already, right? There's going to be a lot more that filter in here. The reason why people tune in is because, well, we have to try to think not like a fan. And what are the expectations of this team, right? It is Super Bowl. That's what everybody has said all along. Hey, play Jimmy Garoppolo, they increase, Super Bowl ready team, etc. Right? So I'm viewing this team as, what do they need to win? What do they need to do to win a Super Bowl? So we will get to that topic. All right. But first, I want to start with some good. And there was a lot of good in this game. The San Francisco 49ers win 24-9. And I talked about, last week, I think it was, I was like, dude, 49ers are 1-2. And I would come on here like, the 49ers are a playoff team. 49ers are going to win 10, 11 games. People are like, how could you say that? And it's like, dude, we've been here before. We've done it. I'm not going to overreact to any of this stuff. But one thing that the 49ers definitely can rely on, and is that they have a championship defense. So let's dive into the defense. I want to get some of your thoughts here. All right. But Nick Bosa, if I'm not mistaken, I ain't fact checked this yet, but I kind of looked at it. He's leading the NFL in sacks. Why is nobody talking about Nick Bosa leading the NFL in sacks?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, not only is he leading the NFL in sacks, but we just saw arguably the best defensive lineman we may have ever seen, at least in our lifetime, unless you're like a Reggie White. But for most of us, beginning a career to end a career, Aaron Donald is that guy. We saw them both on the field last night. Crock, I got to say, Bosa clearly was the better of the two players last night. Now, we'll see how that plays out the rest of the year, but right now, Bosa is in peak form, and Bosa's betting on himself. Bosa's in a contract year. Bosa wants the bag. Bosa's going to play extremely well. This is what he does, man. He's showing out, and he is always around the quarterback. It's insane what he's doing right now.
Yeah, he's going crazy. And there were even some times I saw, who was it? Not Givens. Ridgeway? I think Ridgeway got a sack. And, I mean, I was watching watching the D-line, how they fire off the ball. And I watched Nick Bosa run that hoop, and it really forced Matthew Stafford to step up in the pocket, and he stepped right into a sack. 49ers had 7 sacks on the day. So, defensive line, they're getting after it. And the 49ers did it in multiple ways. They blitzed the hell out of them. They were bringing pressures from different areas. I think it kind of confused Matthew Stafford, made him think a little bit, made him hold on to the ball too long. 49ers ended up getting a bunch of sacks. Shout out to the defensive line.
Even on that Lenore sack where he blitzed off the edge,
yeah,
Bosa was right there. Bosa would have sacked him if Lenore didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he was literally there all night. And now they figured it out to where they can just move him away from chips. That's one thing that Bosa struggled with in the past, is that tight end chip. Now they're just like, whatever, we're going to let you float around. He has autonomy to choose where he wants to go. pre-snap. If he wants to line up left, right, down the middle, he really gets to choose that. And they talked about that in the offseason, and it's benefiting him in a huge way.
I see our guy Trail in the chat, and he says Bosa stay getting held. And there was a couple times where I felt like he got held and they didn't call it. Like one, I felt like it was right there. Like you see him with a clean path to the quarterback, and the dude kind of just yanks him back, and he ends up falling. And then Matthew Stafford ended up throwing for a first down. So I think they can even call holding more with offensive linemen trying to pass protect against Nick Bosa. How good is Talanoa Hufanga? Because this is a guy, and first I want to kind of go over some of my thoughts of him coming out of USC, and I felt like almost like, is he an undersized linebacker, right? Because he's played around 215 at USC, and then he slimmed down to a 201 to run faster at his pro day. He ended up running a 4.61, which is not bad, but it's not like fast, especially for hand time, right? You would like seeing a 4.5s when it comes to hand time, especially for a safety. But you look and you see, can he be a liability in coverage? I was watching him at USC, and it's like, man, he's always kind of, not always, but I thought the anticipation was great, but you can see might just be like a step slow. Well, that hasn't hindered him at all. A lot of the frustration with people on Twitter, including myself, during the offseason, like, man, they didn't draft Nick Cross. They didn't draft this safety. They didn't do this and that. They didn't really address, and it's like, well, maybe they really like Talanoa Hufanga, but all right, I mean, we'll see. I didn't see anything crazy last year. I think right now we're seeing it pay dividends with just his versatility. He could play too high. He could play single high. I watched him in the preseason play single high, and how he had a read on the quarterback, and he's playing over the top. And I'm like, man, this guy is flying around. And then we see too high stuff. We see the anticipation. We see him around the box, and I'm like, is this goddamn Ed Reed playing, or like what? Or is this a 5th round safety who I thought was an undersized linebacker that the 49ers drafted? So, what are some of your thoughts on what you're seeing from Talanoa Hufanga right now?
Yeah, and I think for me, at least, when I was talking about drafting Nick Cross over TDP, it was more that Ward's aging and probably not going to be on this team next year, and so they need that second guy as well. But Hufanga is absolutely incredible. I mean, the instincts are there. And this is what you get when you get an extremely hard worker who studies film and is very smart, right? Like Richard Sherman's not the most athletic guy, but he had a long time in this league being elite because he knew his assignments. He knew what the offense was doing, just made instinctual plays. Hufanga's the same exact way. And it sounds so corny, first guy in, last guy out, but it's true every single practice. And this started last year. This man was the first one on the field every single time. And it doesn't matter what day it was. It's always reported the same. Guess who's first on the field? Talanoa Hufanga. And you can tell that work ethic has translated on the field. He plays extremely fast. You don't have to ask with the 40 time if you know exactly what you're doing. And he knows what he's doing. He knows what the offense is doing. And he's absolutely making plays. And it's incredible because the narrative or the thought around this secondary, especially the safeties, is when they had Tart, well, the offense isn't about, or excuse me, the safeties aren't about making, they're just here to make sure big plays don't happen. They're not, it's designed is not for them to get a lot of interceptions or tip passes or whatever. Talanoa Hufanga has shut that down completely. He is a playmaker. He's always around the ball. And he's just a difference maker. Some players have that. Some players do not. And Hufanga certainly has that.
What was Chris talking about right here where he says, I ended my space for you?
Oh, he had a – what's up, Chris? He had a space going on Twitter. And I said, I think we're about to go live on Crock Show. So he ended his space to come over here.
Oh, shout out. Okay. Little plug too. I like it. We're talking a lot about Hufanga. And obviously, I think Gibson has played extremely well early on. So as it pertains to Jimmy Ward, a guy coming off a soft tissue injury, and my guy Kevin Standard, he just hit me on Twitter and he's like, "Hey, so Jimmy Ward can come back now, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but." And first of all, he's one of the best players on defense, so you want him out there. But he had a soft tissue injury, and with how the defense is playing right now and the safeties, I don't want to say rush him back, because if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. But how do you think they'll do this? Do you think they'll say, you know what, the safeties are playing lights out, they're playing well, there haven't been any type of liability in coverage outside of a couple coverage busts in the first game of the season, but they're doing extremely well. you know what, Ward, we don't have to rush you back right now? Or do you say, nah, we're throwing you in the mix and now we're just super deep and we can just be more versatile with how we want to play defense?
Yeah, I think it comes down to health. I mean, you're either healthy or not, and a hamstring is one of those things that really can linger. If they're not 100% sure, there is no reason to move him back. What I would do with Ward, if he says he feels good, I'm throwing him out there in that third safety package against Carolina, allowing him to kind of be the rotational player for a game, and then I'm giving him his job back because I get Gibson has played really well, but he's not Jimmy Ward.
Right.
Jimmy Ward makes those interceptions that Gibson has been dropping. Gibson had one against the Bears. Gibson was in perfect position again last night, and he just didn't get his hands on it. I believe Jimmy Ward makes those plays, and I love that Gibson's held it down. It makes it to where if Ward isn't healthy this season, or if they want to go back to, like I said, a 3-safety rotation like they did last year, they can do that, and they can do that comfortably. But I ease him in, even if he says he's healthy, give him a game where he's the rotational safety, and then give him full snaps, the starter against.
We got Chris again, and Chris is making me rich right now. Chris says, Pac-12 49ers, Eric Armstead, Hufanga, Diamo Lenore, and Drake Jackson. All right, and shout out to all the you got a couple of those guys right there. USC, Fight On, got the USC jersey right there behind me.
Yeah, let's be clear about that. There's 2 Ducks on there too, and everybody was upset when they got rid of who? Buckner? That was also a Duck. Chris, remember that.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. Let's talk about a unit that might not be getting enough love right now, and that's the linebacker crew. And I didn't know this until I was watching First Take just now, and I don't really watch. The crazy thing, I don't watch a whole lot of talk show in the morning. A lot of times I'm busy, but now since I moved the morning show back, I have time with my wife. We discuss our business stuff. And then I have time, I'm editing the podcast, I'm watching First Take or whatever. And Stephen A. Smith, of all people, talks about Dre Greenlaw. And I was surprised for him to kind of mention Dre Greenlaw, but he's like, yeah, 15 tackles. I'm like, 15 tackles? So Dre Greenlaw, he's flying around. Somebody did say, they were like, Dre Greenlaw set the tone, because I was like, man, Fred Warner, he just sets the tone with his play, etc. But Greenlaw, 15 tackles, 12 solos. So he's flying around. Some of them in coverage. Some of them pushing the linebacker, right? And there were a lot of him kind of tackling the tight end. Can't think of his name right now. Long hair, big tight end for the Rams. He had a ton of catches.
Higbee.
But Dre Greenlaw, balling. Fred Warner, second in tackles, balling. All right, Greenlaw had a tackle for loss. And this linebacker crew, man, we talk a lot about the secondary and what they're doing. But what are your thoughts on this linebacker crew right now?
You know, it's interesting because Greenlaw was kind of the heel in that first week. And I talked about how he grew up playing with Quan Alexander. If you remember, the 49ers had signed Quan Alexander. He was kind of the heartbeat of the center of that defense. It wasn't yet Fred Warner. He became that later on. But Greenlaw kind of grew up under that tutelage. And so you see the way he plays is very similar, right? Hair on fire. And I think it's controlled aggression, and sometimes you can't control it. He was unable to do so in the NFC Championship. He was unable to do so in week 1 as well. But this week, he was able to control it. And when he gets that under control and can play that way, you got guys like him. You got Hufanga. I think all great defenses need a player or two that scares wide receivers or running backs and can lay the thunder. And that is something this defense had not had without those guys. It's great to see. And if you add that in, great coverage, great pressure, and just add that element of being a little bit, I think that's what makes your defense elite. And when I say elite, I mean all-time elite.
Yeah, and I was a little okay, we'll see, right? What happens with the defense, how good are they? And this, to me, was like the big test. And we've seen them early on, but it was like, all right, week 1, you play against Justin Fields in a monsoon. Then week 2, it's like, all right, you play against the Broncos, but like they've been struggling to even score 16 points in the game. So is it 49ers defense great, or is it them? Obviously, Seahawks, 49ers played tremendous against them, and you saw them put 48 points against the Detroit Lions, man. It might get ugly for Aaron Glenn. But I thought this was like the big test to like, how good can this defense be? And again, the Rams, listen, it's not the 49ers' fault. The Rams' offense isn't what they've been known to be, but I mean, they just made them look it was really kind of disrespectful how they treated them. Got my guy Johnny here, and he says, Crock, that was me last night, and he talked about setting the tone with Dre Greenlaw. That he did. All right. Had a super chat here, and it was right here. Here we go. Are we sure Hufanga isn't fast? He registered the fastest speed last night, 21 miles an hour. Maybe he is. Maybe he is fast. And there are some guys that just don't test well. Maybe he got faster. Maybe when he slimmed down for the pro day, maybe he's still kind of playing at that weight, right? Because in college, he was bigger. He was a guy that played between 215 or in that area. So maybe him dropping weight, running his pro day at 200 pounds, maybe he's still around 200 pounds, and now he's 4'6", and has the ability to kind of play faster in his play speed. So that could be the difference between what I'm seeing right now with Hufanga as opposed to what I saw with him at USC. So you might be right. You might be right there. I had one more that I wanted to highlight here. I made a new account for my messages to show up. For whatever reason, for whatever reason, I have no idea why his messages weren't showing up in the chat. And he's like, you got me blocked? I'm like, dude, I don't block nobody. So except for the little things that pop up. So yeah, dude, I'm glad you can contribute to the show now. All right, so we got him in there. We talked a lot about the defense. I only have you for about 8 more minutes. So
I can go a little bit longer, Crock. We're good.
Okay, I wanted to get into Diamo Lenoir because a lot of people, you see, I'm kind of holding off before we get to the offense. We will get to the offense, though. But I wanted to talk about all the positive things going on with the 49ers right now. And I think there were some positive with the offense, but I got some question marks. I know you do too. I put next man up, Diamo Lenoir. And I don't even know if it's next man up because he kind of just stole the spot from the rookie cornerback, Samuel Womack out of Toledo. And Womack, I mean, everybody's excited. Dude's been a playmaker. You watch him in the preseason. I think they have to figure out a way to get him on the field. Get him on the field, however you got to do it, because we've seen the playmaking ability from Hufanga. Hufanga made plays in college as well, especially that last year. There are some guys who just have a knack for making plays. Womack is one of those guys. So I remember when I was with the New York Jets and being in those meeting rooms, and Rex Ryan, he was really good with just utilizing all his players at their disposal, like however he could. And he would run out there with 7 defensive backs sometimes. And I think the 49ers, you got to figure out a way to get Womack on the field because I just think something good is going to happen. The one rep he did get on defense against the Broncos, what did he do? Punch a ball out. And we saw all the takeaways he was involved in the preseason. 4 takeaways in the preseason in 3 games, 2 interceptions. He batted 1 ball that ended up getting intercepted. And then he also recovered a fumble on special teams. So guys like that's always around the ball. I think that's what Hufanga is. You need those guys on the field. You got to figure out a way. But in the absence of Womack, or just not starting, Diamo Lenoir, he's doing his thing. And he had a really tough battle with Cooper Kupp. They targeted him 19 times. Like, bro, what the hell? All right, but great coverage for the most part. You see him challenge guys, and when he was asked to play man on man, he had a couple third down stops. He had a couple times where they didn't even throw to Cooper Kupp because he was on him like white on rice. So the man coverage skills is there. He's really stepped up in that slot position. I think that makes the 49ers defense even better, right? So what are some of your thoughts on what Diamo Lenoir has done so far in his starts?
Yeah, I think one thing that Kyle Shanahan has shown throughout his history is he prefers not to play rookies if he doesn't have to. Right. And so I think that's kind of what we're seeing with Womack. He has to earn his stripes a little bit. He's going to be a very good player, but he might be better on the outside. He can play inside. He might be the future outside corner. We'll see how that plays out. But you have that versatility. And Lenoir, it's not going to get tougher than Cooper Kupp. That is the toughest test that you're going to get out of the slot in the league. And he passed it. To me, he passed it. There was multiple times, like you said, where he was undercutting routes. He was basically running routes for the best slot receiver in this league. And sure, he got his, if you look at the numbers, whatever, but he didn't really do anything to impact that game. And Lenoir, first of all, one of the things that K'Wan Williams did extremely well was he blitzed. And Lenoir's timing on that blitz was impeccable. Him and Hufanga have shown the ability to do that. I think he's probably a little bit better in run defense as well, which is why you play him. Not quite the athlete that Womack is, but sometimes when you play nickel, you don't have to be the best athlete if, again, you know what you're doing. And Lenoir is now a veteran on this team.
Yeah, he's playing lights out. And I was a little I don't want to say concerned, but it just, how much do they like him, right? Like that was a thought of mine because you watched last year, he played early on the outside. I identified him early on in the process. I want to say it was preseason against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he played excellent that game. But I was like, I think he profiles better as a nickel. Just watching just some of the ways that he had to guard guys, and then you see him kind of get beat against the Eagles, and it was like a turn and run situation. Now, Quez Watkins, hella fast, so I get it. But I'm looking, and I'm like, okay, I think he's more of a nickel. And the 49ers were reluctant to play him in the nickel, which I was extremely surprised. Remember, late last year, they went with Alfonso Denard, whatever, to start against the Rams in the slot. Not Diamo Lenoir. He didn't even suit up. So I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong with how I see it. And then early on, you watch in training camp, it's like, well, where is he playing? He's playing on the outside. He's not playing in the nickel. So that was questionable to me. And I'm like, maybe they just don't like him there. But to me, he profiled better as a nickel. And then all of a sudden, you see him start, week 3 in the nickel. And then we see him week 4 do his thing. So that's been exciting to see right there. We got Niner Gang Wolfcast, and he says, defense was great, of course, but how do you guys feel about them playing off so much and letting the Rams put drives together? Do you want them to press more? I think they definitely have the defensive backs and the cornerbacks to be able to press more. Limit big plays, right? And I think they did that. All right, you want to catch passes in front of us. You want to have to dink and dunk down the field. Cooper Kupp averaged, 8 yards per reception. I think that's tremendous, not giving up the big plays, especially if you go back to week 18 and in the postseason. What did they do with Cooper Kupp? Man, there were explosive plays in those games between Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Well, you limited that tonight. He averaged 8 yards per reception. So on the outside, what did Allen Robinson do? He had 7 yards, right? So I think, there were times where it's like, man, can they be a little bit more aggressive with the press? Yeah, but overall, whatever game plan they had going into there, I think it worked extremely well. So I would like them to be a little bit more aggressive, but clearly the results of it were really good.
I thought going into the season that we would see a lot more press, and that was kind of my prediction about the defense, is that third down and long, you would see a lot of press instead of bailing the way that they had last year, and that's where you would see a lot of turnover. They've been able to create those turnovers on third down even without that. So listen, DeMeco Ryans is a hell of a lot smarter than I am. He knows his players. He knows the positioning. Maybe when Ward comes back, you'll see it, or maybe you just start to see it towards the tail end of the year and he doesn't want to show his hand fully, because it is interesting. I feel like they've drafted and brought in players that are better to play press man, but they're not doing that. And so now you've got corners that really can do everything, and that makes you extremely versatile. You can play cover 3, you can play cover 4, you can play 2 high, you can play single high, man, blitz. I mean, there's nothing that this defense can't do. They're all good at everything, and that's incredible.
Yeah, they're doing awesome right there. The 49ers pass defense probably the best in the league right now, especially when you combine not just the third level with the secondary, but the linebackers as well. Some of the things you saw Fred Warner have to do, plaster and match 3 vertical in the red zone, throttle down, break up a pass against Cooper Kupp right there at the goal line. I mean, just guys doing terrific things. Obviously, Fred Warner dropping an interception that he probably would have returned to the house as well. We said a lot of good. Let's talk about this offense now. And let's start with the positives with the offense. I felt like one of the keys to victory was be better on third down. And if you watch the 49ers against the Denver Broncos, they started off 0 for 9, 0 for 8, and they finished the game 1-10. Well, that's not going to cut it, right? Got to be better on third down. And I felt like, man, if they were just a little bit better, right? A little bit better offensively, well, you win that game. And I think in this game, they were a little bit better, especially early on, getting a touchdown right away, which, they did that against the Broncos as well. But the offense does kind of get stagnant. And in the second half, the 49ers had 3 points offensively. Right now, you had the pick 6 by Hufanga, but the offense, 3 points in the second half. I don't think that's going to cut it. If you look at how they scored early on, you had a couple of explosive plays, right? The explosive plays were one, you had Jeff Wilson just burst through, boom, he had the longest run of his career. Is that something you could continue to depend on? We'll see. He's had back-to-back games with one good run, and then outside of that, it's kind of been shut down. And then you had Deebo Samuel. Amazing play, plucked the ball out the air, broke hella tackles, raced into the end zone, long touchdown. Great. And that's how you got your 2 touchdowns. So we watched them last week, stagnant on offense. We watched them this week, stagnant on offense. And I got to thinking, especially with the conservative play call at the goal line with Kyle Shanahan. For a team that has these special players, hey, and we got 400 people in here. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And if you're just getting in here, look, I apologize. Go back to the beginning. We said a lot of positive. We started off with all good things about the 49ers. Not one negative, bad thing that could be questioned. See how I do that? You gotta, you know what I'm saying, kind of prepare them for, like, but, right?
You gotta butter them up. I feel it.
Yeah, you gotta butter them up a little bit. But for a head coach, let's start with Kyle Shanahan. He is the offensive guru, right? Like, that's how everybody, genius, all that, etc. You have 3 guys as pass catchers who are tremendous, right? George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, those guys are excellent, right? Elite, capable pass catchers. You got Brandon Ayuk. He's a good receiver, right? Legit wide receiver too. So, in a league that's so wide open passing, and I get Jimmy Garoppolo and all that, whatever, but it's such a passing game, and you're the offensive guy, how are you so conservative and not really having more of an explosive offense where everything is kind of given to you in today's day and age, and he leans on the defense? Do you think that that's a sustainable? I don't want to say when the 49ers win, we've seen them win with that philosophy. For sure. But I feel like it's so hard. I feel like it's like this is even a better team than what we've seen. And I see Johnny here. He says, and Juice, you got Kyle Juszczyk. You have some big time players with big time ability, and the offensive production is just not quite there throughout these games.
Yeah, and this is a problem dating back to a while, Croc. I mean, you can go back last year. They couldn't put together a full game. It's a bunch of halves. First half, they struggled. Like the first half of the season, they couldn't score points in the first half. Then it switched to the second half. You've seen that again this year, and they're not able to put together complete games. Now, here's the good news. The good news is you're going to win a lot of regular season games playing the way that they play. The bad news is eventually you're going to run into a game, probably in the playoffs, where you're going to need Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan to do more than what they're doing, right? And so when that time comes, are they able to do that? I mean, in the past, they haven't been able to, and that's why they haven't won a ring. But right now, this is interesting with Kyle, and I've been talking about this a lot over the last 7 days. I don't want him fired. I think he's Lance's best chance because he's tied at the hip with Lance. He's Lance's best chance to be successful in this league.
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, the only reason I say that, I'm not saying he's the best chance as far as developing, but if you bring in somebody else, Croc, they're not tied to Trey Lance. So why, you know what I mean? You want to bring in your guy. If Lance isn't your guy, you're not going to care. You're going to bring in somebody else. So that's why I say that. Now, if I get to just pair Lance with somebody, I'm not pairing him with Kyle Shanahan. But Shanahan is tied at the hip with them. So right now, he is the best chance for Lance, in my opinion. That being Kyle Shanahan is talked about like an offensive coordinator way too much, right? And that's when we crush him and when we praise him. We talk about how he's a genius and all these other things. I don't see it. I do not see the offensive genius in Kyle Shanahan. But that doesn't mean he can't be a good head coach. Because if you want to kill him for not putting up points, well, listen, the players on this defense are there because Kyle Shanahan has his say in personnel decisions. He's bringing these guys in. He's developing these coaches. He's developing these players. The 49ers might be the best team in the league when it comes to developing players. Maybe not drafting, but developing. And that starts with who? Your head guy, Shanahan. The offense isn't what it should be, but that doesn't mean he can't be a good head coach. And then when you crush him, you can't say, well, hey, you're not doing on offense. You're supposed to be this offensive genius. It goes both ways for Kyle Shanahan. He's the head coach, not the offensive coordinator. But it is interesting for a guy that a lot of people do label a genius. The offense continues to be the weak link. And we can say that's Jimmy. But again, he's the one that's shopping for the groceries and doing the cooking. He shopped for Jimmy. Jimmy's been here all these years because he wanted him here. So now you got to live with that.
Yeah. Who do you think is better? And you guys can answer this in the chat as well. But Jared Goff or Jimmy Garoppolo? Because here's my thing. So you just think it's Jared Goff is just better than Jimmy G?
100% it's Jared Goff. Go ahead. You go and jump in your thing.
Well, my thing is because it's like, oh, well, he holds him back. And I think that's what the Rams think, right? It's like, man, we got to get better than Jared Goff. And, okay, and I'll also say this. Kyle Shanahan is trying to get better than Jimmy Garoppolo. So this is not me saying he's not trying.
Am I lost or did we lose Crock? Did we lose Crock or did we lose me?
All right, am I back on? Hold on.
Yeah, I thought it was me because I'm outside. I had to move my setup outside because my father-in-law is here, and so I thought it was me. And so I dipped too, and I came back and you were gone. So
it was definitely me. Huh? I don't know what's going on. I looked at my little modem or whatever, and I'm like, that thing is blinking. I don't know what the hell is going on. But we're here now.
You're super quiet, though. I will say that you are super quiet, at least on my side.
So maybe I'm not. Let me make sure I'm talking through my.
You might be talking through your phone, your headset,
right?
Your mic.
Let's see. Sorry for the technical difficulties, y'all. That's what happens when you are live. All right. Anyways, I'll try to be loud. I don't know. I can hear you through my headphones, but anyways, we were talking about Jared Goff. And my question, the reason why I even came up with that, now I got all hot. I'm all hot now and like I'm sweaty and stuff. Like I don't know if I got nervous or whatever. But Jared Goff, I'm looking at what he's doing, right? Because we're talking about Kyle Shanahan being an offensive genius. And he has Jimmy Garoppolo. He has these great weapons. But I'm looking, I'm like, well, how is Jared Goff and the offensive coordinator, Deuce Staley, able to put up 35 points, 27 points, 24 points, 45 points? Now, they're losing some of those games because they don't have the 49ers defense. But how are they able to get more out of Jared Goff with Deuce Staley? And, I mean, who St. Brown, like who's their receivers? St. Brown, Reynolds? We got TJ Hawkinson, he's terrific. Like, how is Deuce Staley able to get more out of that offense than what Kyle Shanahan's been able to do with the 49ers?
Well, first of all, there are some good players on that offense, and it starts with your offensive line. I think Detroit has an underrated offensive line. I think their offensive line is pretty damn good. I think St. Brown didn't play last
I'm not
week.
saying that they're not. I'm not saying they're not bad. Like St. Brown, he's
No,
killing. He's averaging like 8 catches a game.
I see what you're saying.
Hawkinson, he's dope. Like, but what I'm saying is, you know, if you just said the names out loud, all right, you're gonna have Hawkinson, Reynolds, and St. Brown, or Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk, who are most people like, oh, give me the 49ers group, right?
Oh, 100%. Yes, you're absolutely doing that. But the one thing about Jared Goff that you can do that you really can't do with Jimmy is you can drop back 35, 40 times and throw the ball. I mean, Jared Goff has done that. He did that with the Rams. Remember the shootout against Kansas City, right? Like he's done this throughout his career. He can be a 4,500-yard passer and a 30 touchdown guy in this league. I mean, that's just something Goff can do. They're not that far off, right? Like they're obviously very, very close to each other. I think mentally Jimmy's probably at a little bit higher level potentially, but there are just throws that Goff can make and Jimmy cannot. And the whole field is open with Jared Goff. I mean, mentally he may shut down, but his arm is not the problem. He can make every throw on the field. He absolutely can. So if you have a quarterback at your disposal that can do those things, and you can protect him, you can do a lot of things with him, right? And he can throw, like I said, 35, 40 times and only have a turnover or have 0 turnovers and 4 touchdowns. You're not going to get that with Jimmy Garoppolo. You're just not.
All right, 1 second. I think my Wi-Fi is back up somehow miraculously. So I'm going to enter here. Here we go. All right. And let's see.
Make sure you come in muted there. It's going to be super loud.
Okay, hold on. I don't see. Appreciate y'all for being patient through these technical difficulties. Wi-Fi just went out really weird, but let me see if I can remove myself. Hold on. See, I don't want to end this. I just want to remove.
If you're on from the computer, you should be able to remove yourself there and then add yourself. As long as you don't hit end in the upper right hand corner, you should be good. What does the chat think? I'm curious to see what their thoughts are.
We can stay with this. But,
yeah, it's fine. I'm just curious to see what they think about Goff and Jimmy. Like, what's the consensus? To me, like I said, they're in that same category. I just think that there are things physically that Goff can do that Jimmy can't. You know, and I've said I've called Eli Manning clutch Jared Goff, and people are like, oh, how can you say that? It's like, listen, Goff could put up numbers in this league. He just hasn't been clutch when it mattered most, and Eli kind of was. So I don't know. I think he's just a little bit better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
So is it weird? So I asked a question on social media, and this is how we got on this topic. And again, if y'all tune in, because there's like 450 y'all in here right now, we talked about all the good stuff, all the great stuff pertaining to the win and the 49ers. We got into all that. But right now, we're just talking about, some things that's like, listen, got a great defense. Can you consistently just count on the defense week in and week out to win you games, especially in an era where everything is so wide open? And we got a super chat here. He says, are we stagnant in the second half because of Kyle's playing it safe, or is it an offensive issue? And I think you could say, maybe, here's my thing with Kyle. I talked about this on Locked On 49ers, and I said, you have to instill the confidence in your player. Like, you have to instill the confidence in Jimmy Garoppolo, right? And what I mean by that is, and I talked about this on Locked On 49ers. Don't call CPS on me. My son is much older now. But when my son was 7 years old, we lived in this apartment out there in Stockton, all right, north side. We were kind of in that Brookside area, right by In-N-Out Burger. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And we lived in the apartments right next to my son's school. So he's 7 years old. And I was telling my wife, have him walk home. Like, he can walk home. He's 7 years old. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, have him walk. We'll give him a key. He had his little cell phone. And when he gets home, now, again, to me, it's like, damn, he was hella young. But He would just
There
walk
was
home.
no
He walk
serial
home.
killer then. Okay, chat. Like, let's remember that. No serial killers in Stockton then.
Right. The serial killer, whatever's out there right now, wasn't there then. But I was like, hey, find a little group of friends, walk home with your group of friends. Because they were walking home. I'm like, dude, you walk home with them. Here's the key. You call us when you get in the house. But I instilled the confidence in them that, like, bro, you can do this. Right? Like, you can do it. You can walk home. You'll be fine. Just call us, whatever. And if I don't panic, he's not going to panic. And now he's old, right? He's 15 years old now. So he flies all around. He flies to California, flies to Arizona, whatever. And he feels very confident with flying because I instilled that confidence in him from an early age of, look, bro, you got this. Like, you're good. And this Kyle instilled the confidence in Jimmy, like, hey, I believe in you. Got this. You're good. Or is it like, nah, let me coddle you. Let me treat you like a baby. Let me keep. And I heard maybe Troy Aikman say, like, oh, you gotta, you gotta keep him from hurting himself. Or Troy Aikman says something along those lines of, you kind of have to protect Jimmy Garoppolo. He can make a weird throw. And if Kyle goes about that, then maybe that's why we don't see the best version of potentially what Jimmy G could possibly be. And when we talked about the Lions and what Dan Campbell is getting out of Jared Goff, well, Dan Campbell instills the ultimate confidence in his players. Now, the results aren't quite what they want because the defense is giving up 38, 35, 30. I mean, they're giving up hella points. The defense is giving up hella points. 48 points last game. So that's why they're losing. But in the sense of telling your quarterback, we believe in you, I feel like that's where Kyle's kind of dropping the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is a to it. And it's funny because when Jimmy was brought back and you had a group of people that were upset for Trey Lance, right? And you had a group of people that are like, well, this is football. He's a professional. You have to man up. And yes, I understand those things, but these are human beings. You hear it all the time. JJ Watt's a great example of this. Look at his press conference after Sunday's game. That was a heartbreaking press conference. He got real. He was a human for you. All of these players are humans. They have the same thoughts, same negative thoughts about themselves, same positive thoughts about themselves that you and I do. They're not different just because they have a lot of money and you see them on TV. So that being said, you have to be a leader. You have to instill confidence in your players. And Jimmy Garoppolo's team came out last offseason, Crock, and this is glossed over. It was a very small blip on the radar. Not a lot of thought or articles or anything were put into it. But they talked about how they felt like Jimmy Garoppolo had been mishandled by the San Francisco 49ers and that they never got that confidence or felt like Jimmy got that confidence from Kyle Shanahan. Now, this was last year during the offseason. So what's changed between then and now? Well, nothing, because you tried to Lance into the starting lineup. You made him the quarterback. You talked about trading Jimmy Garoppolo all offseason. And now last second, he's back. But where's the confidence? And Jimmy is starting to realize, like, hey, I don't have to rely on this team anymore. I'm not under contract past this year. I write my own history here. So with that, I can be a little bit more free. I can talk a little bit more, tell you the things that I'm frustrated with in a professional manner because he's always done so. But there are little things that are coming out from Jimmy himself that if you pay attention, he's not necessarily the most happy with how he's been treated in the past. And so maybe they can bridge that gap. It's a professional relationship. It's not like it's so fractured that they can't work together, right? But there is certainly something there, and that is on Kyle Shanahan. And in the most important position in football, the quarterback position, if you're going to instill confidence in any player, it has to be that guy. Regardless of whether you believe in him or not, you have to make that player think you do believe in him.
And I think that's what Jim Harbaugh did an amazing job of, where his quarterbacks were always the best players in the NFL in his eyes, whether it was Alex Smith, whether it was Colin Kaepernick, and, the whole patting them on the shoulders, hitting their helmets, before the games, getting them ready to go. I always felt like, man, like once you have that coach that really, truly believes in you and what you're able to do and what you bring to the table, you're going to get the best version of that player. And I thought Harbaugh did a great job of that. But I do want to end with this. And because I'm like on my phone and stuff like that, typically I would bring everybody on live and whatnot. But I want to thank you for coming on here And, you know, especially last minute, I just hit you shortly before coming on. You're like, man, let's do it. Your outlook on this team for the next 2 weeks. The 49ers play the Atlanta Falcons. They play the Carolina Panthers. Are you just like, all right, book it 49ers 4-2? Or does the offense still kind of like, man, I feel confident about these games, but the offense got to give you a little more?
Yeah, I don't think this team's in a position where I can say book a loss or book a win against anybody. Yeah. This game coming up, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is a 1 p.m. Eastern game, which is a 10 a.m. West Coast game on short notice cross country, right? Those games, I don't care who it is, those games are always tough. Now, the good side is that you're playing Baker Mayfield. That's fantastic news because he is not even near Jimmy's level right now. This guy's atrocious, and he started killing the fans just like he did in Cleveland. He can't get out of his own way. So that's the good news. But the bad news is you're about to play a very good defense, in my opinion, probably the best defense you've faced all season, and you're doing it on short notice, early game, cross country. So I don't think anything's a lock, but this defense is going to keep them in all games. I think if they can just tread water, win these 2 games, which they should be the favorites to do so, win these 2 games, all of a sudden,
yeah, they already opened up. I want to say as it's like -4.5.
and they should be. I mean, they should be the favorite, no doubt about it. So if you can win these 2 games, good. Hopefully, then you start to get guys like Trent Williams back for the Chiefs game, and that's going to be the test, right? Like right before the bye week, you're going to get that test with the Chiefs. Are you what we think you are? You shut down the elite offense, and if you can't shut them down, can you keep up with them offensively? That game's going to tell us a lot, because maybe it was because it was the 2 teams in prime time, but I think the Chiefs and the 49ers, for different reasons, separated themselves and put the league on notice. The 49ers did it defensively last night. The night before, you saw what Kansas City did to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was an offensive show. So I am very curious to see how that game plays out, and I believe Trent Williams will be back for that game. So just tread water, win these games, but I certainly don't think they're a lock. No way.
Yeah. Grant Cohn says that Kittle has lost it, but I think it's still a lingering groin injury. What do we think? I don't know. When I watch him run around, he looks like him, but I don't know what he's dealing with personally. So maybe I have to watch him more closely. I do always question, like, why do we not see George Kittle just more involved, right? Yeah, just in the offense. I mean, this is a guy who I think should get 8 targets a game. I don't care if it's, well, he's so great in run blocking, F all that. Get the ball in this dude's hands. And we talk about this offense and the lack of, production. You scored, 9 points last week or whatever, 10 points last week, whatever it was. This week, your offense puts up, 17 points.
17.
And it's like, that's cool, but I don't think that's the expectations. I think you get the ball in those guys' hands and they could do a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to me, George Kittle hasn't lost it, but I will say this. I haven't seen it so much this year, but I feel like every year, just a few weeks into the season, he's always got a limp. It's like constantly this guy's got something he's dealing with, and he's super tough. You got to love that. But at the same time, he's always compromised, and that's just the player he is, unfortunately. He's so physical.
Yeah. And we have a super chat here. It says, if Warner, Kittle, and Jennings catch the balls that hit them in the hands, Jimmy's like 20 or 27 with 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, and I agree. There's missed opportunities there. You could go back, and I think you could do that in every game. So how do you overcome those, right? Like, do you create the plays, by the quarterback at the quarterback position where it's like, all right, yeah, this one. I mean, because those things are going to happen, right? There's going to be a drop here and there. There's going to be a missed ball, but all right, how do we overcome that? And I think that's the part they're looking for right now. Again, 17 points, cool, but you got to continue to get better because, yeah, that big challenge in 3 weeks, that's crazy. But Jesse, man, I appreciate you coming on. Especially last second. Tell everybody where they can find you and all your work.
Yeah, well, it's fitting because I came on last second and I'm with Last Second Sports. So you can find me on YouTube. Just type in Last Second Sports. We are both a 49er and a Detroit Lion channel. I've got my co-host over there that runs the Lion side of things, but certainly we go live multiple times a week. So check me out over there, and including tonight, we'll be live. Crock, I appreciate you having me on. It's always fun doing a show with you, and you're killing it too, man. It's so awesome to see. I absolutely love watching your show. I work out during your show, so you keep me going just like you keep this 500 plus people in this chat going. So we all appreciate your hard work, man.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'm about to go work out right now. Appreciate everybody that's in the chat right now. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Hey, y'all go get a workout in too, man. I was getting a little fat. Nobody told me, but now I dropped that weight down, man. I'm down to 25 plus pounds. I'm going to keep it going. Y'all keep it going. We'll see y'all tomorrow, or actually this evening. We got Greg Pinelli on. We're talking all things quarterback. We're going over specific plays, all that good stuff, throws, etc. What goes into the throws? What's the quarterback thinking? So tune in tonight. It should be about 7 p.m. Pacific. All right. So until then, I'm out. Peace.